Story 1. Begging my mother to let my friends stay the night so we can order pizza, play Nintendo 64, watch Jurassic Park, then play hide and seek in the dark until my mother comes upstairs because we are being too loud and need to go to bed. Story 2. Following terrible handwritten directions to a party, listening to Nirvana unplugged on a compact disc being played on a Discman that is attached to the dashboard, finally having to stop at a payphone to call the house phone for the person who wrote the directions because they got us completely lost. Story 3. It is 1:11 a.m., so I am in my parents' living room recording music videos of the Smashing Pumpkins and Nine Inch Nails onto a VHS tape. I am eating cheddar cheese pretzel combos. Story 4. Fridays at his friend's house. His mother did not mind if we drank or smoked large quantities in the basement. A group of people would gather, and we would listen to music and share the best stories from the week. Sometimes people would engage in fistfights, and other times someone would become pregnant. We were always entertained with no cell phones. Story 5. Reading through the 5 books I checked out at the school library. Most are about extrasensory perception and astral projection. There is also an Anne Rice novel included for extra enjoyment. Story 6. Sneaking out to meet my best friend forever and walk the very secluded path in a sketchy area that our parents told us never to walk alone at night. We are teenage girls who have no concept of danger and do what we want. Spoiler. We are all fine, but we freaked out and ran after we thought we heard a ghost. So stupid. So fun. Story 7. I am out at the Renaissance Pleasure Fair in Novato, California. It is Friday night and the fair does not open until tomorrow, but people have been arriving from all over for the upcoming festivities. There are probably 200 to 300 people on site. Don Brown might still be serving dinner, but his tea house is certainly selling coffee and chai. The aroma of burning marijuana wafts through the air. And in the corner, a group of us are playing music on unlikely instruments like citterns and sackbuts in the Black Point Forest. I miss those days. It was the end of them if we had only known. Tract homes and a golf course now occupy that site. Rest in peace, Black Point Forest. Story 8. I am a 75-year-old man and a widower. In the 1990s, my wife and I were in our 40s. Our children were old enough to be home alone. We spent time at our lake cabin, sometimes with them, sometimes without. We fished, visited friends in our small lake community, and were intimate when we felt like it. Who needed the internet then? We usually did not turn on the television except to check the weather report. Story 9. Specifically, any weekend in 1997, going to one of the many dance or nightclubs in Amsterdam was always my weekend event. Sometimes by myself, other times with friends. These included Melkweg, Mazzo, Paradiso, and the Trance Buddha. I am not sure if any of them still exist now. The last one was my favorite stop, as I was heavily into psychedelic trance at the time. If it was a specific weekend in summer, it would be a music festival. Any days not spent going to nightlife in Amsterdam were probably spent going to local pubs with friends or hanging out at each other's places doing 1990s activities. Story 10. Either spending the night at a friend's house or having a friend spend the night at mine. We're exhausted from riding our bikes around the county all day but just went to the local video rental store and are about to watch a new release movie while gorging on candy, chips, popcorn, and soda. Story 11. Out in San Francisco with my high school sweetheart. Best time of my life. Having dinner, going to clubs, and staying at a hotel. 1990s. Good music, good food, and always something to do. Everything was affordable. Story 12. Hanging out in my friend's basement playing pool and listening to Bleach, an album by the band Nirvana. Story 13. Early 1990s, probably playing Mutant Football League on Sega with my friends in the basement and then playing tackle football on the cement floor. Late 1990s, probably playing GoldenEye on Nintendo 64 at my friend's house because he had a big screen in the basement and we could connect multiple controllers for multiplayer, all while we listened to the local hip-hop stations on someone's large CD boombox. Story 14. Cruising with friends. At the bar, seeing a local band play. Watching The X-Files with friends. Local area network parties with friends. Rollerblading in the park. Rappelling or whitewater rafting with friends. Hiking with friends. Reading a book by myself. spending the evening in Barnes and Noble with friends, chatting on the local bulletin board system with friends, browsing the compact disc section at Best Buy or the local record store, pool parties with friends, matinee movies for $3 with friends, Denny's all-nighters with friends, usually after local area network parties, using printed MapQuest maps to find a venue, paging friends with unusual or inappropriate messages or 911 if they urgently needed to call me about an urgent social issue, deep conversations about dreams late into the night, listening to albums beginning to end by candlelight with friends. Story 15. Riding my bicycle in the cul-de-sac with my neighbors, hitting a tennis ball against a wall, climbing a tree and pretending I am Harriet the Spy, making up a dance routine to show my parents, playing dress up. Story 16. Eating Pop-Tarts, drinking Mountain Dew, and playing Nintendo 64 on mute so my parents don't wake up and catch me. Story 17. Waiting patiently for my time to strike. There is no use being the fastest if I am just going to end up in a latex sack or dirty sock in the laundry bin. Story 18. Either hanging out with my friend across the street or in my room listening to music and reading. Either way, I was probably grounded. Story 19. Feel sad for you. Laugh out loud. Blockbuster Friday picking out movies for a sleepover. Sneaking onto America Online at a ridiculous hour so that dial-up does not wake the entire neighborhood in order to chat with complete strangers. Then sneaking out of the window to smoke an actual cigarette because there were no vaporizers and we were all unaware. Listening to Hole or Nirvana, discussing how our band would be better. Then secretly discussing Total Request Live to see which celebrity you would marry, have relations with, or kill before you even knew what that game was. Story 20. Probably grounded because I got a C on my report card. This is a large gap for me. The 1990s were my 9th to 18th years, so it varied a lot from playing outside to doing push-ups in boot camp. Whichever era you mean, it was a great time to be alive. Story 21. Riding my bike and relaxing at a hideout in the bush. I am mimicking the latest martial arts movie with my brother. Story 22. Off to the Big Bop, Industry, or maybe the Transaction Club in the Annex. A little bit of Duffy's Tavern would be on the sketchy card too. Speakeasy in the entertainment district afterwards. Then cold tea at 4 a.m. up on Dundas. I stumble into the first subway of the day and hit the sack as the sun comes up. Toronto in the 1990s was magical. Story 23. Getting a case of Mountain Dew and meeting my friends at the church to skate off the 9 stair with a nice big concrete wall. Afterward, I will pick up a copy of Los Angeles Weekly or Mean Street and find a show for us to go to. Story 24. The internet was around in the 1990s, long before the World Wide Web was invented. My answer would be playing video games, watching movies, or reading. Story 25. Out and about. Likely going to the mall where my parent lets me loose on the local roller skating rink while they grade papers, then maybe lunch or dinner at Friendly's. Inside reading, playing with Nex and Legos, drawing Sega Genesis. Maybe playing a card game like Uno or a board game with my parent. Maybe have a friend over to do the same. Story 26. Hanging out around a bonfire, smoking whatever marijuana someone could find, and drinking wine coolers. Story 27. Making songs up for my girl band in my after-school program, singing outside with our karaoke machine, playing Barbies with my neighbor 2 doors down, playing with the kids in the neighborhood, collecting rocks, collecting dead bugs, collecting live caterpillars to put into little terrariums I made for them to turn into moths and butterflies, making eggs in the microwave because it was the only thing I was allowed to cook at the time outside of my takes 5 hours minimum to cook, anything easy bake oven. If it was winter, then we were definitely making forts, snowmen, having crazy snowball fights, and sledding. I was secretly crying at some point in the winter because the other kids destroyed my snowman, who was the last snowman standing after all the snow melted. I always took the making of him very seriously and put him in shady spots. There was a good chance I was playing with various other critters outdoors, such as lizards, ladybugs, worms, especially saving them from drowning when it rained. Sometimes I walked across the road to the mall with my mom and siblings, going to the park, drawing, and painting. Although we did have internet and social platforms in the 90s, I also played Neopets and RuneScape online, as well as The Sims 2, Heroes of Might and Magic 3, Heroes of Might and Magic 8, and the classic Mavis beacon on a local computer. I clicked on my boy Clippy just to see what crazy things he would say next. Thanks for all the hotkeys, you were the real most valuable player. I played with the Bonsai Buddy app that may or may not have actually been spyware, but taught me the lyrics to the song Bicycle Built for Two. I added words that I was sure were the actual spellings of words to the Microsoft Word dictionary. I don't know how I figured that one out so young, but our first computer definitely had surprise spelled as surprise, as a Clippy-approved spelling modification. I tried to hustle the tooth fairy for more money by engaging in cliché pull-your-tooth attempts like tying a string on the door. I practiced spitball practice on my Barbie poster, took mini Polaroid pictures that were even smaller than the Instax ones, had sleepovers where we stayed up all night telling stories, painting nails, playing, and eating junk food. I climbed trees, especially my reading tree, where you could find me for at least some number of hours on any given non-raining or non-snowing weekend. I flew kites, rode bikes and rollerblades, played hockey in the street, had blow-up pools in the backyard, and more. Story 28. Playing Pokemon on Game Boy, playing Pokemon trading card game, watching Pokemon and all the classic 1990s Nicktoons, playing Nintendo 64 with my neighbor, probably Mario Kart or GoldenEye, checking out Blockbuster for new games and movies, reading a book. Story 29. I was a kid through the 90s. When I was inside, I watched cartoons, played with Duplo, Barbies, board games, puzzles, and listened to music on a cassette player. If I was outside, I would play on the playgrounds around my neighborhood, roller skate, bounce on my skippy ball, and make up games as I went. Story 30. Drawing Spider-Man in preparation for one day taking over for Mark Bagley as the penciler of the Amazing Spider-Man comic book. Story 31. Cruising on Friday night. We would just drive down a road, pull in, talk, drive more. Maybe one night we make it a goal to go to as many McDonald's as we could before curfew. Maybe it is Walmart's. Maybe we drive to the river park and sit there. And then drive more. Drive. Story 32. I started with bulletin boards, the equivalent of today's social media, in 1985. At the university in the United States, we had a hardwired connection to the system. These were terminals or microcomputers with a permanent connection. People from as far away as England could connect via their networks. From home, of course, it was dial-up. By the mid-1990s, I had already been online, chatting with the world, for 10 years. There was no going back. Story 33. Let's see. If it is 1996 specifically, I have to wait until December 29th to be born. For the next 3 years, I watched Dora the Explorer and Blue's Clues. I also played Super Mario 64 as best as I could when I was old enough to hold the controller on my own. Story 34. Probably renting a game from the local mom and pop video store to play with friends. I really missed that because they had good prices and we got to try many games, as the owners seemed passionate about having a variety rather than just 20 copies of the newest popular titles. Story 35. Probably watching music television, playing Super Nintendo or Sega Mega Drive, going out late at night with my friends. Story 36. Playing Wolfenstein 3-dimensional, then later Doom, then later Duke Nukem 3-dimensional, and Quake. I did not have many friends apart from my computer. Story 37. Watching a movie. I worked the video counter at a grocery store and could take home one video each night. I watched many movies that year. Story 38. Summer. Probably working or at my grandmother's house in the country. If the latter, I am on the floor with headphones on, surrounded by compact discs, and reading the lyrics from the insert. Or out riding bikes, poking dead things with a stick, getting up to country kid activities. Not summer. Home from school, food in the microwave, music television on, and I am choosing a game to play. Or I am in my room doing homework, drawing, or reading while listening to the radio or my portable compact disc player. Story 39. Smoking marijuana, playing Tomb Raider on my PlayStation 2, going to the movies later. Dinner late at night in Chinatown. Story 40. Hoping a friend can sleep over so we can eat pizza, play video games, and maybe even watch some anime. However, we will probably go camping or to a family barbecue. Story 41. Friday night, meet friends in a local pub, head into town, go into a really dodgy pub for a game of pool with a guy who supplies us with ecstasy and amphetamines. Head to another pub to meet more friends. Drive to a nightclub where we dance until 2 a.m. At 2 a.m., drive to a service station car park where many people from the club continue partying. Head home around 4 a.m. Early Saturday morning, smoke cannabis to relax and come down. Fall asleep as the sun rises, ready to repeat it all again Saturday night. This was the usual routine every week throughout the summer and autumn. Story 42. Prepare yourself for the wall of text, because this was my mental life while I was remodeling homes for homeowners. Self-employment was brutal. Lying in bed after my nightly shower, mentally double-checking and noting at my bedside my to-do list for the next day. Startling awake with the feeling that I had almost forgotten my employee's son's lunchtime birthday party, which I somehow scheduled myself to attend at the same time as the critical final project inspection. Wondering if I could schedule someone to deliver something sweet, funny, or kind for that event a couple of hours in advance since I would not make it. Calling to apologize for my absence. Thinking about when I had sent in my credentials to get approval for that new certification on time, and sent renewal fees for license, bond, and insurance. Wondering if I remembered to grab the invoices out of the truck or if they had made it into the office on my way in while bringing groceries to make dinner. Hired a neighbor kid to do housekeeping. Grabbing the notepad to write down the color the client decided to call me about while I was in the middle of conducting a safety meeting. Added those thoughts to the morning list to check again at 5 a.m. while making coffee, breakfast, and lunch. Did I put gas in the truck on my way home, or do I have time to do it on my way to meet the new client and pick up timesheets? That one supplier is not delivering on time, I have to call him. Find a new one if I hear excuses. Is everything available for my crew to work tomorrow at start time? Block out time for marketing. Allow 2 hours to review the signed client contract and meet with them to discuss start date and progress payments. Thank God I have that change of clothes with me. Do I need a haircut? How are the jackets and work shirts looking for the crew? Do they need replacement gear? Do they like them or do they dislike them? Do I need to get them steel-toe boots for this job? What does the personal protective equipment station look like? Have I trained my crew to respond correctly if there is an accident? Am I making this a good place to work? Do they get along and teach each other? What can I pay for health insurance options for the crew? Who is the best person to send to training? Review how this all fits together. Meet the accountant. Meet the attorney. Schedule reviews and raises. Review applications and schedule interviews. Hire someone for goodness sake. Calendars and checklists. My favorite vacation spots to turn this off. Las Vegas to lounge next to or float in a child-free pool for part of each day, followed by a late afternoon lunch and an early bedtime in a perfectly silent room. Windsurfing in the Caribbean for a week. Crystal clear sea with a nice reef if I want to snorkel. Out on the board, pure peace. Either way, no calls or emails. Story 43. At 9:57 a.m., depending on my age, I would probably be at my best friend's house watching videos, playing in the garden, or window shopping in town. Later in the 1990s, I would be at school having to do music practice, oboe lessons, tennis lessons, or some other activity on my Saturday. Then I would take the train back to where I lived alone to meet my friends at a prearranged time and place, or my inappropriately old boyfriend, who was 22. Afterward, I would go to my friend's house, have dinner, get dressed up, and we would go out drinking underage. Others were taking a lot of drugs. Parents had no idea what we were up to. Story 44. The same thing I did in the 1990s. For the first half, if nothing was arranged at school or college during the week, I would phone a local friend or two and see if they wanted to do anything. In the latter half at university, it was mostly the same, but I also used email and instant messaging during the week because internet was available everywhere on campus. I got dial-up internet at home in 1996 or 1997, if I recall correctly. Story 45. Early 1990s high school was still happening. Saturdays I played rugby, and Sunday was the only day I didn't do anything. Later, around 1996, I didn't have much of a social life. Saturday nights were spent watching something Australians would understand in cult movies on special broadcasting service. Saturday evenings featured a segment that showed cult movies, with a few weeks of Clint Eastwood movies followed by a few Jackie Chan movies, and probably playing with Lego. Story 46. Probably watching one of the movies we rented from Blockbuster and eating a bag of microwave popcorn. Story 47. Driving down the shore with my friends listening to Alanis Morissette and Pearl Jam on my 10-disc changer. Story 48. I lived in Chicago in the 1990s. A typical summer weekend involved me riding my mountain bike about 3 miles to the lake, through Cabrini Green. I would ride north or south once I got to the lake. I would come across friends in either direction. Keep in mind, we did not have cell phones. We would hang out and people watch while talking, maybe play frisbee, swim, pet random dogs, or do something else. In the late afternoon, I would head home. Then at night, if there was not a party at a friend's house or mine, I would go out either to Clubfoot, Gold Star, Exit, or the Hideout 95% of the time with friends. Story 49. Probably hanging out with friends. We have a small boombox and some tapes or compact discs to listen to, and we have probably ordered a few pizzas. Just hanging out at the park, smoking cigarettes, and maybe having a few drinks too. Story 50. Heading out to mow a few lawns in the neighborhood, then walk up to the golf course and play 9 holes. Hopefully, I have plans to hang out with my friends later or, even better, go play cards with my girlfriend. Story 51. Calling my friends and neighbors. We are having a court party. Bring the kids. Fun for all. The barbecue will be set up. Bring what you want. Hamburgers and hot dogs are provided. We have the watermelons covered and the corn on the cob. The rest is potluck. Bring salads and sides. We will provide some non-alcoholic drinks. If it is hot, we will need more. Bring your own beverage. When I was a kid in the early 1960s, we would block off the streets around the block and have a block party. It was a yearly event. Everyone was there. It was a community party. It ended at dark. Story 52. The 1990s were my middle school, high school, and most of my college years combined into one decade. I need a specific year. 1990 was vastly different from 1995, which was vastly different from 1999. Story 53. Playing online and chatting on social media because it is the 1990s and they exist. Unless you meant the 1890s or something. In that case, setting my book down, snuffing out the candle because burning candles all night is expensive, and walking out through the mud and rain to the outhouse one last time before going to bed early. Story 54. I lived in Las Vegas in the late 1990s. I visited all the casinos, met many interesting people, gambled extensively, and watched local rock bands. Now, I live in the Midwest. I do not drink and have settled down. Story 55. Either playing bass in my band at a club, rehearsing, or going somewhere to listen to live music. Story 56. I'm either camped near some water fishing all night or at a 24-hour coffee shop smoking cigarettes and playing Dungeons and Dragons. Story 57. It is Friday and we are going to Blockbuster to pick out a couple of movies and a game. Then we are going to Pizza Hut to pick up some pizzas and breadsticks. Children these days will never know this feeling. Story 58. Dog show, dog rescue run, or getting ready to go hang out with my father or the then in-laws at a campground nearby. Story 59. Headed to a friend's house for a role-playing game, followed by walking the streets at 2 a.m. and discussing problems while smoking. Story 60. Most likely, I would be reading either Goosebumps or something by Roald Dahl. If I were outside, I would be on my bike or in our pool. Story 61. Riding bikes outside with friends until dark, then channel surfing or watching the television guide channel to find something interesting to watch. Story 62. Mom dropped my friends and me off at either the roller rink or the mall and would pick us up later. At the roller rink, we would also play some laser tag. At the mall, we would listen to new singles at Sam Goody or Virgin Megastore before going to a movie. Story 63. Somewhere in the bush around a bonfire, getting drunk on 2-liter coolers and smoking marijuana from a can, listening to a burned compact disc of rock songs on my friend's car stereo, and laughing a lot. Story 64. Watching the Golden Girls rerun. The high school version of me is waiting for dinner, tired from playing outside with the dog or basketball. Story 65. Probably at a club, music gig, or movie. I saw many films at the actual cinema or drive-in in the 1990s. or even a video night at a friend's place. That said, if I worked a closing shift and deep clean at the supermarket, I am probably just lying somewhere groaning quietly. Story 66. Trying to throw a hacky sack over the streetlight, sharpening sticks to a fine point on the curb, sitting in the bed of a truck telling ghost stories, and eating cold Pop-Tarts out of the box. Story 67. I could be making a mixtape so when I use my mom's Oldsmobile I can listen to tunes. A mix of Alice in Chains, NoFX, old Metallica, Tragically Hip, and Depeche Mode. I drive to the next town over, pick up my friend, and we drive around, flipping laps on Main Street while waiting for a party to materialize. No cell phones, so it's all word of mouth. Story 68. Smoking cigarettes, probably drinking because that is what teenagers did, hanging out with my adult boyfriend, going to church because Christ was life and wishing to get away from it all. Home life was awful and I did not want that adult boyfriend. Story 69. Taking poor quality pictures of our cars at night with disposable film cameras before we go out racing. Story 70. Getting off my mash in a field somewhere to a Jeff Mills and Dave Clark set of hard-rolling Detroit techno. Story 71. Early 1990s. Go to a show at a local club, do not drink, watch the time nervously because I had to be at work at midnight. Mid-1990s. Smoke marijuana. Wallow in depression. Watch the movie Clerks again. Late 1990s, go to a bar or a party with friends. Drink and talk about work. Story 72. Laundry, grocery shopping, 2 Narcotics Anonymous meetings, eating brownies and reading Louisa May Alcott. Maybe also doing college homework. Story 73. Pollution-free environment. Real elegant people. The vibe of brotherhood and emotional attachments between people. Seeing your parents in their youth and being with them. Learning, living, and enjoying all the moments I will have in my 90s. Living in the countryside of my country and being productive. I do not know exactly what I will be doing, but I am sure I will love those days and nights in my 90s. Story 74. Dad worked Friday nights. Mom would take me to my tennis lesson, and we would grab a pizza from Pizza Hut. Thin crust vegetable pizza with one half having no olives or mushrooms for me. Then I would go play Nintendo 64 in my room, probably GoldenEye or 1080. Story 75. I'm trying to beat the water level in Ocarina of Time with the player's guide open on my lap. I beat my Nintendo 64 with the controller out of frustration. The controller is fine and the console is fine. Both of them are built like rocks. Story 76. Woke up in the morning, had breakfast, took my bicycle, cycled for an hour, reached the cricket ground, played until noon, went back home, had lunch and slept through the afternoon. Played cricket again in the evening at the army ground. Story 77. Finishing work at 1 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, get some alcohol on the way home, drink a few, and head out to the clubs. Story 78. I will probably be getting into debt from telephone bills. I would wait through television advertisements to finish a favorite movie. Songs and compact discs will be treasured possessions. Story 79. Going to my favorite mall before it was financially affected by certain groups and low-quality discount stores. Story 80. My buddy and I have the ceiling fan on high, and we have 2 plastic eggs from my little sister's kitchen set. We toss the eggs at the ceiling fan and then try to dodge them. When we get bored, we go to the kitchen and get glasses of soda, then stand next to the sink trying to make each other laugh so we shoot soda out of our noses. During the day, we ride our bikes to every corner of town with no real destination. My mom having no idea where we are and no way to contact us. Maybe we find some sweet sticks and have a sword fight, or maybe we just talk for hours about our theories on the world. No matter what we are doing, we think about how much we want to grow up, never realizing we are living the best lives we will ever live. Story 81. Living in London with one of my best friends, going to concerts a lot, wondering if this freelance work was going to be a good idea. It was. Story 82. Friday night around 2 a.m. I am just getting back from the dance club. My live-in girlfriend is with me. We were intimate before we went dancing and planned to do it again in the morning. However, now we smell horrible from cigarette smoke at the club and need to shower and rest. My feet hurt. Story 83. standing outside the bus station waiting for my friend, who is standing inside the bus station waiting for me. Story 84. Putting glass packs on my Chevrolet Chevelle and rejetting the carburetor. Then I will go out for a drive to see how many people I can rattle with that bare-knuckle bark. Story 85. Am I an adult now? Wow, this really sucks. I suddenly feel like my parents had it so bad in the evening, watching free-to-air television, and then what? But if I were a kid again, then I don't know, maybe just watch free-to-air television. Story 86. It's nighttime, and my friends and I are playing street cricket in the growing darkness. Blinding lights from cars occasionally break up our game as surprise drivers swear at us while they pass. We're using a wheelie bin as the wicket, and you are automatically out if you hit the ball into one of the houses. The street lights have not come on, so I do not need to go home yet. After cricket, we will play street-wide hide and seek, and this time, Nikki is not going to find me straight away. Story 87. It is 8:20 p.m. on Saturday night. I am probably still standing in Video Easy trying to pick a movie to watch. Story 88. Ordering Pizza Hut and a 2-liter of soda, playing on my Super Nintendo Entertainment System, going to Blockbuster or Hollywood Video to rent some movies, staying up all night, waking up in the afternoon, and going to my nearest arcade to play the latest games. Story 89. That's a 10-year stretch. A lot changed from one end to the other. So if we're talking 1990 to 1993, probably renting a Nintendo Entertainment System game, getting a pizza, and staying up late to watch Headbangers Ball on music television. If we're talking 1994 to 1997, then probably buying an eighth of cannabis, cruising around town with my girlfriend in a rusted-out old car looking for somewhere to party. If it's 1998 to 1999, then I'm heading into work for a 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift as a barback at a posh cocktail lounge. Story 90. Waking up early Saturday morning to watch cartoons, swapping between Fox, American Broadcasting Company, and youth television. Then playing Super Nintendo for a few hours before either going outside with a friend or two or going to Blockbuster by myself to rent a game or some movies. Story 91. Smoking hashish and drinking white cider in the park, listening to heavy metal, and not caring about my school exams at all. Story 92. Going to rent a few movies, getting some popcorn and pizza, or walking outside with a friend. I was a teenager in the 1990s, so if it's Friday, I would be watching Thank God It's Friday. Story 93. Playing Metal Gear with my dad, munching on chips, planning a future in technology, petting our family dog and cat, giving the nice guy a chance, offering my parents financial advice, and explaining shares. It is going to be a big weekend. Story 94. Reading a paper book and then going outside to play with my horse. It is the same thing I am doing now, but with fewer social contacts. Story 95. Probably hit Blockbuster with my best friend and then play some video games for about 5 hours afterwards. I would completely forget about the movie we rented. Story 96. Saying I am bored but really being blissfully unaware of the chaos that is coming from people like Mark Zuckerberg inventing a website to objectify the girls who will not sleep with him. Story 97. Calling a taxi to order beer and drinking beer, then hiding the beer in the woods behind the bowling alley for next weekend. Story 98. Playing all the PlayStation Crash Bandicoot games and throwing my controller at the screen in frustration from trying to complete them all 100%. Story 99. Playing Super Mario World and building Hot Wheels tracks that ran throughout the house. Getting shouted at by my mother, hiding in the treehouse until dinner. Story 100. Hanging out with friends and family, playing outside, and listening to music. It was a much simpler and easier time to be alive. Story 101 had been there, listening to or recording new DJ sets, playing games on my Commodore 64, later Atari Jaguar, reading Perry Rhodan, John Sinclair, or Jerry Cotton video game and computer magazines, PM Magazine, books about mysteries of the world, paranormal things, traveling, inventions. Telling my mom I am often outside, for example, when I do long-distance walks to my brother or my dad, about 16 kilometers or 10 miles in total. Occasionally hanging out with a friend, doing some urban exploration. We were 12 to 13 years old. Story 102. Either playing billiards with a friend at a very nice hall near us in Toronto. The pool halls were sketchy, renting something from Blockbuster, or catching a band at the El Macambo or Horseshoe Tavern. With luck, it was the Hopping Penguins or Downchild Blues Band, but I never caught the Rolling Stones doing secret concerts when preparing for a tour. Story 103. Probably going outside to find my master sword so I can fight all the imaginary ninjas in the woods. Good times. Power Rangers for life. Story 104. Friday night, I would be grabbing my GI, bow, and water bottle, getting ready to head to the dojo for weapons night. After class, we often went to get dinner at the local buffet as a group or ordered pizza delivered to the dojo and analyzed unauthorized Ultimate Fighting Championship fights. Saturday, I lounged in bed until it was time to prepare a crock-pot meal for the Dungeons & Dragons game group meetup or headed to the dojo for Saturday class. Sunday was housekeeping day and preparation for the upcoming week, usually with movies playing on the video home system player while we worked. Story 105. Watching some films on television after checking out some Saturday morning cartoons. If the weather is okay, playing outside despite living in the neighborhood. Story 106. Most likely hanging out with my friends. Either we would be going out drinking, going to a concert without everyone holding up their phones to record the show, or just hanging out at someone's house. If none of my friends were available, I would probably just be relaxing at home with the original PlayStation. Story 107. Seeing how fast I can run from the beginning of our ravine to the end of our pond. Gardening with my mom. Feeding the fish in the garden pond. Seeing how many tadpoles I can catch with my hands. Running with the dogs. Riding my bike around our land. Walking through the forest area to find deer or restock the deer feed. Helping my mom clean the porch, clean the bird bath, and restock feeders. Story 108. The internet definitely existed by the mid-1990s, and bulletin board systems date back to the 1980s. I am probably either trading anime VHS tapes or playing some Japanese role-playing game on either the PlayStation 1 or the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Story 109. Jump on the trampoline, swim in the pool, go to the beach, talk on the telephone, go for a hike, and cruise our one main street looking for boys. Story 110. One or a few of these activities. Go to the movies with my parents on Friday night, attend piano lessons and rehearsals and stay there the entire afternoon, buy DVDs with my family to watch over the next 2 weeks, play video games, have a sleepover with friends, read a new book that just came out, or catch up with the latest episodes of an anime I really like. Story 111. It's 1997, and I am 25, taking some classes, working at a bakery, and road tripping with my friends. I miss it. Story 112. I am on the internet, which was invented in the 1990s and was in many ways cooler than it is now. Story 113. Which part of the 1990s? Because I used AOL Instant Messenger and Yahoo Pager, which became Yahoo Messenger in the late 1990s. Social media in the 1990s was in its infancy and not as we know it today for sure. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.